Ready?
No. Can you please summarize what happened?
Now, we're thankful today the jury came back with a verdict in the matter of Rebecca Zahow, finding that Adam Shacknai had committed battery, resulting in her death, and awarding Pari Zahow, Rebecca's mother, $5 million in general damages for the loss of her daughter. I want to thank the Zahow-Lehner family, first off, for trusting me to take this case. It was a huge undertaking. We were outgunned, outstaffed. We struggled through. It was a little messy at times, but we're tenacious. And I think what really made this all happen is our belief in the case and our belief in Rebecca Zahow. I didn't get to meet her, so I've spent the last 4.5 years getting to know her through her family, through her friends, through her works, through what she read, through what she painted, through her notes, through her texts. And I feel close, obviously not as close as her family can, but I felt part of the family and being part of this process. We're in shock now still. We knew that Rebecca did not commit suicide. Solid. When I first looked at this case, I knew right away that Rebecca did not commit suicide. We also knew that this was going to be a huge undertaking because we're fighting City Hall. You know, the Sheriff's Department said this was a suicide. And that was going to be a tough undertaking. But we knew in our hearts that we were right. We hoped that we'd be able to prove that to a jury later down the road. It took 4.5, 5 years to do it. And today's the culmination of all that work. The counsel on the other side, fantastic lawyers. I've been a lawyer for 3 decades now, done a lot of trials, and this toughest trial I've had, I learned a lot about being a lawyer in this trial because of the caliber of the lawyers that were the other side of the case here. We saw Dan Webb, who's really an icon, a legend in the legal community, who's lead defense counsel out of Chicago. Mr. Ellsberg out of New York, the only Harvard magna cum laude graduate I'd ever personally met, a gentleman, outstanding lawyer. What I think really won it here for us was the truth and the facts. And we were able to work hard and get those facts out in front of the jury, and the jury looking at this agreed. So now I asked at the end of it, this is not about money. You know, we got a $5 million verdict, but the defendant in this case, Adam Shacknai, doesn't have that kind of money. And it's never been about the money. It's been about getting the sheriff to reopen this case. And we brought evidence forward and showed it to Sheriff's Department personnel who apparently had not looked at things this way or ignored it or missed it. Something just went awry. And I asked Mary at the end of the day, wow, what do? We got a verdict. And she says, we got to get the case reopened. That's it. Our job's not done yet. We got to keep working. We're going to petition the sheriff to reopen the case, to declassify it as a suicide and to reclassify it as an open investigation. Look at the evidence that we presented and the connections that we made in the evidence, and hope that the sheriff can use its resources. One thing we were really lacking was resources. You know, we don't have the kind of money the defense had here. We don't have the kind of money that the Sheriff's Department has. You know, we just kind of did it with stone knives and bearskins, right, or whatever we could get along with. And so hopefully we can get the Sheriff's Department to put resources into this, really truly effectively and efficiently investigate the death of Rebecca Zahow, and hopefully eventually prosecute Adam Shacknai.
But if he refuses to do that, does that make what happened today any less significant for you?
You know, it's a good question. The question is, you know, even if the sheriff doesn't open it, does it make today any less significant? You know, actually, even a win or a loss today didn't make it that significant. You know, we got the evidence out in the public. You folks, the media, are sharing it with the public, you know, so that everybody knows what's going on. It's an open book. There's a transparency here so that everybody can see what's going on. And that was one of our big goals right there, period, so that let's get this out from the closets in the Sheriff's Department and behind closed doors and get it out in the public, where the public can really look at it and see what's going on. And we accomplished that goal. So, you know, even if it came back today as a loss, we know Rebecca didn't commit suicide. We knew who did it, and we got the evidence out in public, which was one of our big goals. What's your reaction, Mary?
I'm in shock. And I just want to thank everybody. And I want to thank the jury for spending so many weeks to get justice for Rebecca. And I want to thank all our families and friends and people who have donated on the GoFundMe page and given their support through prayers and wonderful words that helped me through all this. And I can't thank everyone enough. No matter what happens to Rebecca, I can't get her back. Our family can't get her back. But hopefully people will know that she didn't commit suicide and she was murdered and she doesn't deserve to be treated the way the sheriff's department treated her.
What would you say to Sheriff Ford today?
Be nice.
I would like him to be honest, to be truthful, and to reopen the case and investigate it as a murder. For 7 years, we had to fight to just prove that she didn't commit suicide, even though we knew she didn't.
It's been a long 7 years.
It's been a long time.
It-
No, she's at work, but I'm going to call her now.
She's at work packing pork, wearing 4 sets of gloves, 3 jackets, a hood on her head, right?
Yeah.
I think she can. If anybody, guys, can support, Mary mentioned the GoFundMe, and this family has committed a lot. This is a very, very expensive process. Our experts, we have $200,000+ in costs in the case. These guys sucked it up. Doug, you still selling your truck?
Yeah.
Doug's selling his truck. Mary got a loan from her employer. We've got $50,000 in unpaid expenses that if the community would step forward and go to the GoFundMe, just Google Justice for Rebecca, Rebecca's a how, send this family back to the Midwest without carrying the debt that they incurred. It's not to me. It's not a debt to me. It's a debt to the experts that we had to bring out, the Cyril Wecks, the James Kents, the experts we had to bring and put on the stand on all the technical issues. If we could give them a big San Diego send-off, would be a fantastic thing to do to these families. If any of you could put this out on the air, the GoFundMe page would be great.
It's not about money. Adam doesn't have money. Jonah does have money. You're going to go back and try to settle this with the defense. So where do we go from here? If it's not about money, you're just going to say to the defense, don't worry about it?
We'll have to collect. We'll have to go through collection processes, but it's not. It's under Tennessee law. You can garnish up to 25% of a person's wage. He's a tugboat captain, and it's disposable income. So you're talking maybe $15,000, $20,000 a year for the next 10 years till he retires. Cover some of the costs. It won't cover Pari's expenses. It's just.
But when you go into a settlement to try to settle with the defense, will the Jonah Shacknai's money be part of this settlement, or how does that go?
I don't know. You guys saw him. You guys saw him on 2020. The last thing he said on 2020 is, "I'm not giving Greer a dime." So, I guess we'll have to see what happens.
Mr. Greer, you told the court you wanted $5,000 a year for the contributions that Mary would have made to her, Rebecca would have made to her mother. Now, this $5 million award is quite significantly larger. What do you think the jury was saying with that?
Yeah, that's. In closing arguments, we asked the jury to award, obviously, the money that Rebecca would have been helping to support Pari, so that, Doug and Mary wouldn't have all that weight on their shoulders alone for the rest of their lives. And they awarded that. But then I didn't ask for a number on what value do you place on the loss of a daughter that was as close, to Pari as Rebecca was. And I just said, jurors, I trust the jury to come up with a number that is the fair number, and evidently they looked at the evidence in the same way that we did, that Rebecca was just a really unique and valuable individual that was very important to her mother, and that's the number they put on a daughter, and it's priceless. Nothing can bring her back. So it's when those numbers came back, it was I think it was a compliment to Rebecca and an affirmation of the closeness in the relationship between the two of them. That's how I took it.
Doug, you're a police officer in your home state.
Yes, that's
What
correct.
do you say to Sheriff Gore, because it's going to be difficult to convince him from the evidence point of view what stands out to you, and what should you say to Sheriff Gore to convince him to reopen the case?
Turn it over to the San Diego Police Department. Have them look at it.
Why?
Say it louder there. He's a-
Well, they're better.
You're better.
Yes,
Why
ma'am.
would
He's a
you do
hit.
that?
Seriously? We're here today, right? Because they ruled it as a suicide. You're going to ask me that? Of course, this police department will look at it better. So,
What's the evidence in your mind that stands out in this case that indicates murder? You're a police officer.
there's a lot of it there. That also. I mean, there's not one thing that stands out. I mean, there's quite a bit there, with the hanging itself, the where Levidity's at, the handwriting on the door. There's just a lot of it there.
every aspect of it.
And then we have to talk to the jury yet, but to follow up with that, do you think there was something, what do you think turned the jury for?
What I think turned the case was how the sheriff's department personnel reacted on the stand. I think when they were asked the questions, the serious questions about their investigation and about the apparent discrepancies in their findings, and the way they reacted, I think that's what turned it. Because the defense aligned themselves with the sheriff's department. They were going to stand by Dr. Lucas's autopsy report and finding that it was a suicide. And I think their strategy early on was to say, hey, the sheriff did this right. They did an extensive investigation. They came up with a solid finding, and they were going to align themselves with the sheriff. But then when the sheriff's personnel came on board, it was clear that it seems like every one of them said it was suicide. They stuck by the party line, but then when you ask them the facts to support it, they just fell apart. In fact, they didn't even bring Dr. Lucas on. I got a call or a text at 10:30 in the evening on Saturday before Dr. Lucas was supposed to come on Monday, and they pulled him. They pulled Lucas off. Now, why do you do that? That was their guy. That was the guy whose opinion they're going to stand on. I think that was probably their fear of what was going to happen to him on the stand once we confronted him with all the same questions that all of his personnel had really just crumbled under.
When you say the reaction, what do you mean by that? What
No good answers. The personnel had no good answers. They tried to, like with regard to this, like the source of the blood, for example. They tried to say that the rope burn on her finger could have been a potential source of the blood. And I said, "You're kidding me?" And I asked the agent at the time, "How would you have to hold the knife in order for the blood to be on all four sides of the handle down at the base?" And so she takes the knife, and she puts it between these two fingers, with most of the handle out there. You'd have to hold the knife like this and rotate it around on the rope burn, and it's like it just under close scrutiny and questioning, the excuses or the explanations that this fell apart. It was just, I think the jury was just shaking their head saying, "You got to be kidding me." There we go.
I know your theory of the case was that the motive was sexual assault, but in your heart, do you really believe that Max's death had nothing to do with this motive, and that Jonah Shacknai had nothing to do with this death?
Yeah. No, Max. The only association that Max had is that Max's injury, his fall, is what brought all these players together. That's the only connection. Had Max not had his fall, Rebecca would still be alive. Yes. But so far as this, when we got this case, how many crazy stories were there and theories, and so many people looking at this odd, and it took 4 years to weed through all the crap and get right down to the basic essence of it, and it all came down to something that was just very simple. It's we had a number of theories early on based on all the evidence we had, and then those changed over time as the evidence changed. We at one point in time had an eyewitness putting Dina Shacknai at the scene that night. That's a big factor that changes everything. And as we were able to weed through the evidence and just shave it down, all the muck out of the way, just to what really happened, it winds up being something just very serious and very obvious. And then with this with our theory that we presented in court, every single piece of evidence fit. Now, if it didn't directly incriminate Adam Shacknight, it was at least consistent with had he done it. And so it just became very simple, very straightforward, easy to understand, really.
What investigation was done, or what in your mind shows you that there was no collusion in this between Adam and Jonah?
I think it's the opposite. I think that the motivation here was the lack of connection between Jonah and Adam. You know, he didn't, when Max fell, was in the hospital, Adam didn't call Jonah, but didn't feel close enough to call his brother and say, hey bro, you know, what's up? Can I come out and see you? Dina Shacknight, you know, testified that they bantered each other like schoolboys. There's a big difference in their success in life, and you know, Adam didn't even feel comfortable enough with his family to introduce his girlfriend to the family for 20 years. He lives alone, and he doesn't introduce his family to the girl who's allegedly his girlfriend. I think it was really his isolation was a bigger factor than his connection with Jonah. I think Dina Shacknight testified he had boundaries he kept. You know, I think he lived in his world, and he's a fiction writer. He wrote his own stories, and he lived in his imagination by himself. And then I think when this incident happened and he was caught doing something that he knew was not right, and the anxiety of that being found out, maybe, you know, by his brother, by the world, overwhelmed him. That just,
You go through this privately and publicly through this whole process. What does tomorrow look like for you? You wake up tomorrow, how do things change for you?
Wow. Tomorrow I go back to work. We got bills to pay. I have a full schedule. The next 2 days I'm scheduled to work as usual. We have 2 kids to take care of. We have my mom to take care of, even though she is capable of taking care of herself to a certain extent, and she works. And we have to put our life together to a certain extent. Even though we're going to continue to fight for the case to get reopened, we have to get back to normal routine. And the reality that Rebecca is gone is really gonna hit me. Because all these years, I and my family have been fighting just to prove that she was murdered, and now we're here. And I have to accept that she's gone. And she's in a better place. And that we'll see her someday. It has been a struggle. It has been a real challenge for my faith, for our family. But God doesn't give us something that we can't handle, and I have to remind myself of that. So we're gonna try to go back to normal routine with our kids.
that'd be nice.
Would be very, yes.
Weekends with soccer games,
Baseball.
you know, laundry, cleaning house, usual stuff. 2 kids.
Mary, why was it so important for your family that she did not?
I don't know how to answer that question. Would anybody just not do anything if that happened to their daughter or their sister or their significant other? I mean, my sister was brutally murdered. She tried to escape, and just the thought that she knew she was gonna die breaks my heart. It just rips my heart out. I know my sister fought. She fought really hard, and the sheriff's department chose not to look at those signs because it was so convenient for them to close it as a suicide for whatever reason that maybe I'll never find out. But I know God knows. I know Rebecca knows. And I know Adam Shacknight knows.
How do you
All right.
come to accept and go back to normal with your life, knowing that possibly criminal charges will never be filed against Adam?
I don't think I have thought too much of that because it's been one day at a time. It's still our hope that there's going to be a criminal investigation and a criminal trial. I'm not going to give up.
You
Right.
mentioned during your close that Rebecca was able to have a few last words directed toward Adam Shacknai, also to the family, and to everyone that's watching. What were those words? What were those words to you?
Yeah, that was it, Mary. That was right before I got onto the podium to close, and I had 12 pages of notes, important things I wanted to share with the jury. Mary said to me, if Rebecca was here and could give her last few words to the jury, what would they be? And it really hit me emotionally. I actually wound up not reading any of my notes after I got to that point, and it came from getting to know Rebecca all these years. It just came so quickly, and I wrote them down very quickly. What would Rebecca say right to the jury right now? And it was forgive him, help my mother, and hold Adam Shacknai accountable for what he did wrong. And it just came out quick and natural, and boom, like she was writing it herself. That's what she would have said. Agreed?
Yes.
Williams.
Yep. Thank you.
What's going to happen tomorrow?
Don't know yet, gang. We're living a day at a time. Right now, we're still in shock, I think, from getting through this. So we do have some more work to do. We have a potentially punitive damage phase tomorrow. We'll see if that happens.
Is it possible you can come back this afternoon and waive that?
We may not. I mean, it's $5 million is a lot of money. It's more than he'll ever have in his life. If the punitive damage phase is not necessary, we have to talk to some other attorneys, but there's some technicalities we have to look at. We may not do it.
Yes.
The question is, would they settle if they gave a number? Yeah, I guess it would be a chance, probably, because we've done our job. We've gotten it out there.
So would that
Yeah.
happen tonight? Or is that the week after three? Or
Don't know. Yeah, don't know.
So
They haven't up there right now. There's, like I said, there's no money from Adam. Jonah has said he's not going to give her a dime. Remember, so
you're going to see
This
the
is-
judge at 3, correct?
yeah.
Between now and 3, you're going to be talking to them.
Well, we know we have to work on our punitive damage instructions. We have some disputes over those in the law and things, so we have to have those ready for the judge by 3. Yeah. We good, guys, gang. Thank you, Rory. Last what?
I just wondering if we could find out from your mom how she feels if you let us know.
Might have to wait for the next interview for that one. We're going to call Mom. All right. All right. Thank you, everybody.